Thank you, everyone, for joining this evening for the Consulting 101 webinar. My name is Emily Peer from our campus recruiting team. And before we get started, I wanted to share a few logistics for the webinar. We'll have the opportunity for Q&A following the presentation via the chat tool at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So please send any of your questions to either Vicki Anjay or me, Emily Peer, via the chat function. You should see our names at the top of the screen. And with that covered, I will go ahead and hand it over to our presenters, Kyla Balkin and Jay Sura, to introduce themselves, as well as to lead us through the Consulting 101 webinar this evening. Kyla and Jay, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyla. I'm an associate out of our New York office. I've been at the firm about 2.5 years, and I thought we would tell you our favorite thing about A.T. Kearney. It's corny, but mine is definitely the people. I think the people we work with are not only really great, and I think we always say we take our work seriously, but not ourselves, but also are just from a really diverse set of backgrounds, from different schools, from all over the world with super diverse interests.
Cool. Hi, guys. I'm Jay Sura. I've been with the firm for about 1.5 years. I'm a senior business analyst out of the Chicago office. My favorite part about Kearney has been a couple things. One has been the entrepreneurial nature of our firm. It's something that's valued. You can see it in the extracurricular opportunities that we have, as well as the different projects that we have. And the second is the size of the firm. I interned at a firm that was a little bigger and found A.T. Kearney to be really, really personal, but still have a global impact and have the opportunities for analysts through managers in a variety of settings. So we can talk about that a little bit more, but thank you guys so much for joining.
So Jay and I are going to tell you guys just a little bit about our background and what brought us to consulting and to the firm. So I went to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I don't know if any fighting Quakers are in the house. And I majored in economics and in English literature. I was a double major. And I did a few different things while I was in school. I was really involved in theater. I did a lot of acting, and I was part of a production company. I volunteered, and I was part of a program that took freshmen camping and hiking before they started school. And I ended up in consulting partially because I was interested in a bunch of things, and I'm not great at choosing, but I knew I was interested in business, and I wanted the opportunity to see a lot of different things, and I really liked the idea of being able to always be working as part of a team. I'm like very collaborative in nature, and so that appealed to me as well.
And so I went to the University of Michigan, both for undergrad as well as for my master's degree. I did them both in industrial engineering. On campus, I was basically part of 2 or 3 main things. One was IM sports. I took a lot of pride in playing a variety of IM sports. The second, I was in a consulting club, so did pro bono work for local businesses in Ann Arbor, help them work on strategic initiatives that they were working on. So did things anywhere from like distribution strategies to pricing strategies, and had a set of consulting experiences there. And then also was in a volunteer organization centered around the engineering community. Chose consulting for a few reasons. One was I really enjoyed my time on campus in the Pro Bono Consulting Club. Two, I had a few industrial engineering internships and actually liked the consulting aspect. So the teamwork aspect, the collaborative aspect, quantifying and turning an engineering problem into a business problem. And that was why I ended up actually moving out and joining AT Kearney.
So we wanted to give everyone an overview of what exactly is consulting, because if you know anyone in consulting, maybe you've asked them and they've told you it depends or it can be a bunch of things. So try to clear up some of the confusion around that. So the kind of pitch around consulting, or the quick and dirty version, is that we help clients solve big business problems, especially where they need to put structure around a lot of complex thinking. So a big piece of our work is the collaboration and being a part of a team. So that's definitely what I really love about consulting. You're never thrown into something where you have no concept of the industry and no one to help you. You're always working with a team, so the more senior people on the team are going to be experts either in the specific industry or the specific function, or they have a lot of experience with the client. We get asked a lot about, starting a project and you don't know anything about that industry, or you're not familiar with that client. And I think this is a big part of being a business analyst in consulting, and definitely not something to be afraid of. It's a great opportunity to learn something new, and luckily there's a lot of easy ways to do that, from looking at like internal work we've done in the past for that industry, or just reading the news and being up about what's going on with your client, what's important to them, what their key focus areas are at the moment. So it's definitely a great opportunity to explore, and not something to be afraid of, and a big value in consulting. And the last kind of major piece of any consulting project is working collaboratively with the client, and all the client interaction that entails. So it's not like we go in to a client and we sit in the room and we run a bunch of analyses and we make a recommendation and we disappear. It's very much, almost all projects have a pretty large degree of collaboration with the client, both because they know their work super well, they know their business super well, and they can you mutually benefit from each other, both their expertise and your ability to come in as a fresh perspective. And for you, as a consultant, it's a really great opportunity to be able to work with a client, to work with someone who's dependent on your skill set, who's looking to you and your team for answers. I think it's a really appealing thing about consulting that right away you get a lot of exposure and you're able to practice working collaboratively with someone who doesn't work for the same company as you. So that's a big part of what we do.
Great. And then, so just a little bit behind AT Kearney, and then wanted to touch a little bit on our alignment, like our generalist model, as well as our staffing model. So as Kyla mentioned, a little bit about this is what life is like at the client site and what a consulting engagement looks like. A lot of people ask, what kind of clients do you serve? The short answer is we serve a variety of industries. So every industry that you see up on the top part of that page, we service, anywhere from defense clients to private equity firms, CPG clients, health clients. Within each of the industries, we also have a variety of service industries depending on what our clients are looking for. A health company might be looking at buying another one. So that would be in our M&A space. We do some work in like large-scale transformation. So maybe a new executive has entered a leadership role and is looking to take control over an underperforming division of the business. They'll look to our strategy, top-line transformation, or they might even look in our leadership change and organization expertise to see how can I change the organization, or what products do I need to introduce in order to turn this division around. When you join as a business analyst, you will have you'll join as a generalist, meaning that you don't need to be in a specific industry or a specific service line. Instead, you'll have a variety of project experiences. In the first year, year and a half, I worked in about 5 or 6 of these industries and at least 3 of these service lines. And you start building your core set of, building and applying your core set of consulting skills in along each of these projects. These projects, so in addition to the generalist model, we also have a national staffing model, meaning that a consulting team, which is typically made of maybe a partner or 2 partners, a principal who handles more of the day-to-day client interactions and the project leadership, working side by side with an executive. And then you have like the functional team. So a manager who can be out of the New York office, associates and analysts that can be out of the Chicago office or a variety of our North American offices. And there's also an opportunity through our global mobility program to look at international opportunities as well. So that's like a general overview of the clients we serve and how you would get staffed on a project.
So Jay and I are going to tell you about what we think. Maybe we can't tell you everything about what a typical experience is for a business analyst at Kearney, but we're going to tell you about one specific project each of us did and what our role was, so that you can get a more detailed sense of the type of work you might do if you end up at Kearney. So when I was a business analyst, one project I did or I was involved in was a broad sales strategy refresh for a construction equipment dealership. So Jay said you work in a lot of industries. I came in interested in retail, and I ended up in heavy machinery. But it ended up being a really interesting project and gave me a totally different perspective in a different industry. So a sales strategy refresh essentially entails kind of a broad look at the market, the company's past profitability, and thinking of running a consumer survey. That was one part of what we're doing to understand, you know, where they're knocking it out of the park and where they should focus on improving, and then helping them set up their next. It's usually 3 to 5 years in terms of sales strategy. So my role as the BA was I developed a cost to serve model to understand the true profitability of their customers. So it's easy to look at factors like gross profit and think, you know, those are the SKUs or those are the types of service we should be offering. That's where we're making the most money. But the purpose of a cost-to-serve model is to dig a little deeper into that and understand, well, what's the true profitability once you account for all the operating expenses that are required to actually bring that, to deliver that product or that service to a customer. So I was setting up a tool that took in all sorts of different inputs, from financial to transportation and delivery to marketing, all sorts of different costs, and understanding how they should be allocated to different customers based on their service and product use. So this was a really cool experience because this was a company that is PE owned, and the PE firm was actually our client. So the people I was working with day to day, because it's a smaller company, was their chief of strategy or the person who was like the head accountant sitting under the CFO. And we did our final readout and recommendations to the president of the company. So it was really exciting to get to work collaboratively with, as a VA, with people who had a really high level view of the company and were really strategic thinkers. And I think actually the coolest moment was showing kind of the output of my analysis and sort of what locations were most profitable, what would be the ideal mix of business for this company, and the client team being so excited and like so ready to take these slides on the road and talk about them with their individual branches. So I felt really proud and like a real sense of ownership over the tool I had built and the insights I had developed.
And yeah, just to complement that, I'd like to share a little bit of, on the right side of the page, a BA experience that I had. So about a year back, was working on a project as part of a large transformation. So there was a new executive, kind of what I described in the last page. There was a new executive who had stepped into a pretty senior role as the Chief Transformational Officer. They had released to investors that they were looking to take out, to run a very, very big cost takeout program. So AT Kearney as a whole ran 3 or 4 large work streams to analyze the cost takeout to approach the cost takeout from a variety of methods. The method that I looked at was actually taking a look at their physical products. So essentially what we did was we bought our clients' products, we bought competitor products on the market, and tore them down piece by piece. And when I mean tear them down, I mean like physically take the nuts and screws out of each of the components and lay it out in a methodical way. From there, and once we had all of the products laid out and could be compared from product to product, we built a should cost model for each of these products. So essentially saying our client makes product A and it costs $10 to make, and their competitor, client B, makes the same product that has the same customer value for $8 to make. How are they able to do that? This was really valuable for me just because I was able to apply my engineering background but still in a business setting and contextualize it across a portfolio of over 400 SKUs. And essentially what we worked towards was physical design recommendations of how they could change their product. We partnered with an industrial design firm, and it led to products changed and that will be and the products will be changed and featured in the stores this year. So I thought that was like a really cool and tangible way to show the impact that I had in a very short amount of time. And it was pretty well received along the client front. We went back and forth a lot, but working side by side with their business unit owners, their product managers, as well as the procurement teams, we were able to put a dent in the savings target.
Great. Thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences. And I have to say I'm loving the action on the chat function. We've gotten a lot of great questions coming through. So let's go ahead and get started. For the first question, what surprised you guys most when joining A.T. Kearney?
I can take this. I think Jay sort of mentioned it as something that drew him to the firm, actually, which is the quote-unquote entrepreneurial spirit. And for me, that actually, so what surprised me a lot about the firm was just how true that is. We have kind of an interesting, Kearney has an interesting size where we're not an enormous firm, but we're kind of that mid-size right in between in the industry. And I think that has two effects. One is that you have the resources to start sort of any initiative or any kind of area of interest within the firm, but you're small enough that you can really quickly get to know a lot of people in your office. And I find that because of that, the firm takes on this sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of quality, which for me has been really exciting, where if you want to do something, if you want to work in a certain field, if you want to start some sort of activity in the office, it's really just about, talking to the right people and planning it yourself and pitching it to someone. But there's a lot of freedom of movement because of that.
Yeah, and Kyla, if I could just add just to that point, and maybe provide an example that might bring it a little bit to life too. So I started about a year and a half ago, and we have a really cool initiative called the Global Innovator Days. It's basically our internal startup competition. Within 2 months of joining the firm, I joined a team that put together a pitch of basically this is an idea that we think we can, that our clients have expressed an interest in, and this is what we think we should do in order to kind of take this to the next level. We pitched the idea and we actually ended up winning it. This resulted in getting board funding from A.T. Kearney board. And within about 7 months, we had our own commercial platform that we took to clients. And the idea was this product teardown idea. And being able to take it to a client within 7 months, this practice didn't exist. And in 7 months it did. And now I've been tasked with kind of growing it even further as an idea, or as an example of basically how an idea can turn into something very tangible very quickly at Kearney.
Great. Next question. Can you talk about any of the mentorship programs at A.T. Kearney, either formally or informally?
Yeah, sure, I can take this. So when you join the firm, you have someone who is considered your mentor. So this person is assigned to you based on your background as well as some interests that you might have. So they might be in a service industry that you're interested in, or they might have gone, so my mentor went to the University of Michigan and had the same major as me. And they serve as your advocate during performance review calls. They serve as the person who you can ask maybe your project-related questions to. Let's say you're in a situation where you've been on a client for a while and you want to maybe switch projects or try something new. They'll work with project leadership as well as staffing to help make sure that you get those opportunities. So that's more on the formal side. My favorite part is that I have way more informal mentorship than formal mentorship at the firm. Through the product offer, or through Global Innovator Days, which I just talked about, I met a group of 5 or 6 people who have provided me a lot of professional advice and a lot of personal advice. This is my first job out of college, and just acclimating to a new city, as well as how to navigate AT Kearney was really, really helpful for me, and they were very, very welcoming. I think it's something that you can always see with someone at Kearney, no matter how late of a night it is, no matter what else you have on your plate, there's just a general willingness to help another person achieve what they want to achieve. So I would say that there's internal or informal as well as formal mentorship opportunities, both which I've been lucky to have so far.
Great. Okay, for the next question, I'm going to kind of combine two questions. So how often is a newly hired business analyst exposed to a client? And then on top of that, kind of what's the dynamic on a project team between the BAs and upper level consultants?
So the classic consultant response to this is it depends, because everything varies a little bit by project. I will say, in my experience at the firm and my friends who I started with at the firm, new business analysts are almost always given some level of exposure to the client. I mean, the main reasoning is a lot of times business analysts are the ones owning a tool or owning a model. They have like a deep, deep sense and understanding of the data and any trends and insights that can be pulled out of it. And because of that, the team wants that detailed view in the room with the client. Of course, there are situations that are higher touch, that you might only have a partner there, or there are certain situations and exceptions to that, but I found generally that there's a lot of exposure right off the bat, especially in projects where that are especially collaborative, where your day-to-day could be working one-on-one with someone from the client team. And then I think the other question, Jay, maybe I can throw it over to you, was about relationships within the team to upper level consultants.
Yeah, so maybe like, and I alluded to this a little bit, I guess, in the presentation, but the general team structure, like if you have a brand new analyst, would probably be like an associate, which is like the post-MBA level, or a senior analyst or a manager who's providing them with a little bit of guidance and oversight as they're starting to develop their consulting skills. I'm thinking about like an absolute brand new analyst. With consulting, after you have, I was pleasantly surprised with like how many skills I could transfer from project to project, in terms of like a lot of Kearney teams are similar in that they're pretty collaborative. There are no dumb questions. And you see people all the way up to principals getting into the details as well, which is awesome. So I would say generally the advice, or generally the relationship between a brand new analyst and someone else on the team would be, I would say, rather informal. You can basically ask them whatever questions that you want, and you'll typically have at least a senior analyst or an associate to guide you along the way.
And something to add quickly to that is, as a project team, you spend just a ton of time together. Some projects you're working fairly long hours, you're at the client site, you go and have dinner after. You're spending a lot of time with these people, and you'd be surprised how quickly, big or small project teams become close, regardless of level, just because they're having the same day-to-day experience at the client, and they have a lot to relate to each other on.
Great. For the next question, what has helped you get where you are today, and how can a newly hired BA become successful and get up to speed coming out of college?
I think that there's not like a magic formula of do these 5 things and you get to where you are. I think that generally people who have succeeded in consulting are folks who are pretty interested in the content and always willing to like engage their team as well as the client. So it is not expected that a brand new analyst knows everything about their project. Likely they won't know much about the industry or the specific problem that we're trying to solve. But I think the most important thing is to be willing to say that you don't know, to jump in to all of the material kind of with both feet, ask as many questions as possible, and take the guidance of those who are ahead, like in front of you. I think that we at Kearney are very privileged with the caliber of our colleagues. And as a brand new analyst, I think the most important thing is to basically be a sponge in every aspect. So you're working with an associate who has demonstrated capabilities in developing models. Learn everything that you can about developing models. You see a partner deliver a presentation to a CEO. Try to pick up on some of the items. Just basically having that exposure each and every day does a lot for those who are willing to learn.
I think another super important thing as a new business analyst, and something I think you work on your entire time as a consultant, is kind of ownership of your work. No matter how big or small your role is, no matter how high level or in the weeds, just constantly asking yourself, what's next? Like, who do I need to check in with? Who do I want feedback from, want alignment with? You know, what's the next step in this piece of analysis I'm doing? And that's something that I learned as a BA, because for the first time you're not kind of being told exactly what to do. And I think it shows a lot of kind of interest in your work to develop that ability and flex that muscle.
Great. I guess as part of getting up to speed, could you guys hit on some of our professional development at AT Kearney?
So when you first join, you go through kind of a rigorous consulting skills boot camp, but fun kind of thing. So you learn a lot of Excel skills, a lot of PowerPoint skills, a lot about what a typical BA role is, and what skills can make you successful as a BA. And there are lots of consultants at the firm involved in training as well. So there's always a million people around happy to answer your questions. So that's kind of the new BA perspective. And then throughout your time at the firm, as you progress, there are different trainings catered to specific needs. So when I was a senior analyst, we had a training on structuring PowerPoint presentations, and how you can kind of own that full process and ways to think about it. And a few weeks ago, I took a training on presentational speaking, so kind of identifying tics you might have when you're in front of a client, and what are ways to best present yourself. And there's also a lot of optional trainings for people to get smart on specific industries or specific service areas, and that is more elective, so you kind of get to create your own experience in terms of ways you want to develop.
Great. I think we'll wrap it up with one more question. And if we didn't hit your question, we'll try to respond to you individually via email as well. So for the last question for both of you, what was your favorite event or memory at the firm?
Go for it, Jay.
Yeah, so I'll probably say, so like in terms of like a fun team event, most recently, I was working on a merger between two telecom carriers, and we had just gotten done with our last summit, so our last big meeting before the end of the project. And as celebration, we had a really like extravagant evening planned. So we started with going to a riverboat cruise, and we had a pretty big team out there, 40 or 50 people, which is, I would say, atypical for Kearney. It was split up over like 5 or 6 work streams, but a pretty big team out there. So we all went on a riverboat cruise and had dinner and drinks, and that was great. And then after, we went to a virtual reality arcade and continued the night. So it was a really fun night.
I think that, I don't know if I have a team event that can top that, but I think my favorite thing I've done at the firm is, and kind of fits in with this entrepreneurial thing we were talking about, is one day I think we were at a firm happy hour, and I was talking to a manager I'm friends with, and I get made fun of a lot at the firm because I was an English major, which apparently is a rare thing in the New York office. And he said, what if we had a book club, like an office book club, because things can kind of be very serious sometimes around the office with everyone kind of focused on their client work. But Fridays in the office are very social, so I sort of just picked it up and ran with it, and we've had now 2 or 3 sessions with people around the office, and I thought, this is super nerdy, I don't know if people are going to be into this, but it's ended up being really fun and a way to connect with like consultants and people in HR and different functions at Kearney. And I've just been really shocked by how amped people are about it. People like try to get me talking about the book when they pass me in the office, and it's just become like a really exciting thing to do that's brought the office together in a little way. So I think that's kind of lately my favorite aspect about working at the firm.
Great. What book are you guys reading?
Right now we are reading Educated by Tara Westover.
Oh. Cool. I heard that's awesome.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Well, thank you so much. With that, we will close out the webinar. If you have any further questions, and like I said, we will try to answer all of your questions coming through on the chat function individually, but feel free to reach out to us at careers.ug@atkearney.com, or feel free to reach out to any of our presenters. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We hope that you found the webinar helpful and interesting as you begin to think about your future. This is the first of our spring webinars, so if you continue to check our career site for upcoming events, we'd love to see you there. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you guys. Take care.